Hey, happy Friday, everybody. This is Tracey Lawrence, author of the Amazon #1 best-selling book, Dementia Sucks. And I'm here for the Good Kids podcast. And today it's just me by myself, and that's totally okay. Um, and I'm here to talk about Here Come the Holidays. So, the holidays are a mixed blessing for many of us, right? There are people who love the holidays. There are people who hate the holidays. There are people who thrive during the holidays. And there are people who turn off their email so as not to be disturbed while they're doing their podcast. so, so, but, there are reasons. For many of us, we have been told throughout our lives, and I realize that the America that we're living in right now is a little different from the America that I grew up in. And, Thanksgiving has always been a really lovely holiday for me because I'm a person who's always been grateful for the things that have been bestowed upon me. I'm somebody who's more of a glass is half full kind of person, and I've learned in my later years that it's much more important to count the things that you have rather than to look with regret on things that you don't. So, with that in mind, I would like to share that I'm very grateful for all I do have. I live in a beautiful home. I have a wonderful, loving, understanding husband for whom I've been caregiver in the past. And I have a wonderful cat named Fletcher who is just a delight. And I have you guys. There have been so many lovely things that have happened for me in this last year, especially now towards the end of the year. And I will be sharing some of that with you very shortly, but I did want to get to kind of the meat of what this podcast should be about, which is things that you need to be vigilant about with the holidays upon us. Now, if you are going to the home of your loved ones, that's a really brilliant opportunity for you. Because if you've ever had the thought, like, how are my parents really doing? This is a great way to figure it out. So here are some things to be on the lookout for if you're going to your parents' or aging loved one's house for the holidays. All right. So, number one, and I really suggest that you're discreet about the way you look and what you find when you look. Okay? Things like going, oh my God, it's not a good way to go. Okay, it's a bad luck. So, so you wanted to make sure that as you're going through and you're noticing things, take notes. Be discreet. You don't want to like go nuts sharing this stuff, but you do want to make notes for your own well-being and your own edification, so that you'll have something to look at later when it becomes obvious that action needs to be taken. Because these things are kind of cumulative. They add up. So when you go to your loved one's home, first thing you should notice is, does the place look clean? Does it look organized? Look around. If your loved one has the luxury of having an office, take a peek and see if there's any mail piling up, any papers, any collections of materials that can make it difficult for people to get around in their house. Now, sometimes people will be aware that they are, practicing what's known in the industry as hoarding, okay? As we age, over our lifetimes, we collect stuff, right? And then as we get to a certain point, we start to realize that there are things that we've had for a very long time and we don't use anymore. And it's time to start letting these things go, whether we give them to someone or we donate them to charity or throw them away. That's sometimes that's your choice, because a lot of treasures that people have are maybe treasured by them or were treasured by them at one point in their lives, but they get to a point where the items no longer have value for them. So you want to start taking note of stuff. Okay, very important, because if things are accumulating and they're not being dealt with, then if you don't start to address it sooner than later, you're going to be left with it later. And the last thing you want is to be in a situation where you're having to clear out someone's house because they're no longer going to be able to return there, or there's been some kind of crisis where they've had to be hospitalized, where they have gone to rehab, and now they're returning home and they can't navigate through their house to get to their bedroom or wherever it is that they need to go in order to be comfortable and safe while they're recovering further from the crisis that they were in. So that's a really important thing. Next, the refrigerator. The refrigerator can be very illuminating because over time, things collect, especially stuff in the back that may be old, that may be moldy, that may be really disgusting and unsafe to be consumed. So you want to be on the lookout for those kinds of things so that when your loved one isn't paying attention, you can kind of go in there and start chucking stuff. After the holidays would be a good time to do that if you're able, because especially if they're like fond of holding on to leftovers, you might want to start clearing that stuff out and then look for other stuff that's taking up residence. So it's what I call Jurassic food. Look in the freezer too. Sometimes there will be frozen items that have been there for so long they're not even recognizable any longer. So if those kinds of things are accumulating, you want to intervene and get rid of them. And you also, again, want to make note, because if these kinds of things are happening and accumulating, it might be time to start having some conversations. So I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay. Next, medicine cabinet. You want to look for expired medications. And, look, if something expired last month, all right, so what? There may be like some Advil or Tylenol or something that your parent takes, and maybe it's a little old. So you could mention it to them. And you want to look for medications that are years old, because those should not be around, because they're no longer effective in many cases. They deteriorate, their composition changes. It's not a good idea to keep expired medications in the home. And just so you know, if you're reluctant to throw them in the garbage, something you can do, especially if it's prescription medications, is scratch off the name and address of the person for whom the prescription was written. And you can bring those bottles to your local police station. There are many municipalities that have a medication dispenser, excuse me, so that you can safely dispose of medicines that are no longer needed in a way that they can't be harvested by unscrupulous people or dumped inappropriately. So, you want to keep that in mind. Okay. And just in general, you want to take a look around in the house and see if there's anything that stands out as being weird. Okay. So that's your parents' house. Oh, also, if they're driving, you want to take a look at their car. See if there are damages, okay, over and above like normal wear and tear, chip paint, excuse me, things of that nature, not a big deal. But if the front and rear bumpers are like really banged up, if there's, if there are, big damages to the vehicle that have not been explained to you, you might want to ask questions, because if they're starting to have accidents with their car, it may be time to start having conversations about the disposition of their vehicle and whether or not they should still be driving. Okay, so that's their house. Now, what if you're entertaining at your home? All right, well, some things to look out for, and this, of course, can extend to conversations that you have or things that you do when you're at your loved one's residence. Okay, so if your loved one is telling the same story repeatedly within the same visit, it's not unusual for somebody to repeat a story that maybe they told you something over the phone and they forgot that they told you. That's fine. But in the same visit, if they tell you a story and then an hour later they tell the same story, you may have some dementia brewing and you want to make a note of it. If they get lost going through your home and they've been there before, that could be a problem. Excuse me. If they drove to your house, again, take a look at the car. All right, that's a really great telltale sign. Look inside the car. See if there's a lot of junk in the car. Particularly if they've been neat people most of their lives. You want to take note of things that seem to be aberrant from their lifelong patterns. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Look for repetitions. Look for things that they're spatial problems. If they can't find their way around. All right, now, what else are the holidays good for? The holidays are good for reconnecting with siblings. Now, in the event that one of you is going to be the caregiver, and you don't always know at first, but if you think about it, usually there's one person who it makes the most sense will step up and be the primary. Okay? And it's a good time, while your parents are still cognitively intact or independent, to start having conversations with your siblings that don't necessarily include your parents. You want to save that for a little later, because you want to make sure that everyone kind of has a basic understanding of what caregiving is about, what their roles might be when caregiving happens. If people are getting together and they live in different parts of the country, generally the child who lives closest to the parents is the one who's going to be the point person. So you want to make sure that you guys are communicating on a more productive level than simply falling back into roles that you guys have always had with each other from the time that you were little kids. All right? It's time to start growing up. It's time to start talking to each other as adults. And you want to set time aside to compare notes on your parents. If you have been noticing things that are troubling to you, then what you want to do is you want to schedule time with your siblings to go over some of what you've been observing and see if their observations match up with yours. Don't be surprised if they don't, because no one's looking for trouble, okay? We don't want to have these connections, these observations, because if we realize that something is indeed wrong, then we might actually have to do something. So denial will be very powerful, okay? There are going to be siblings who say, no, they've always been like that, there's nothing wrong. What do you mean? They still get around fine. Dad still plays tennis twice a week. Mom still plays golf. Or whatever their things are. But if you've been noticing some of the things that I've been talking about, disorganization, hoarding, old food, old medications, things of that nature, repetition, asking the same questions repeatedly, these are all triggers. These are all reasons to start considering a higher level of involvement in your parents' lives. It's extremely important that you start having these. First of all, you want to gather the facts. Form your team. Right? If you're lucky enough to have cooperative siblings, then now's the time to start having these conversations. And once you have your team on board, then you want to schedule time to talk to your folks. And you want to do it as a family meeting, not necessarily at the holidays, because no one wants to do this on the holidays. And you don't want your kids around. You don't want to expose people who don't need to be involved to what you're planning. All right? So, you want to kind of take a multi-pronged approach where you gather your team and then you have a family meeting with the folks to start asking questions. You want to know what things they've done, if they have their estate documents put aside, have they worked with an attorney? Have they thought about what they want for the end of their lives? Have they done any long-term care planning? Now, for some of you very lucky folks, the answer will be yes. I was a lucky person. My parents actually did some planning. They didn't want to share that with me because I was their kid, and they didn't feel comfortable putting that burden on me. However, there comes a time when you have to share the goods. You guys have got to have the conversations. You got to know what to talk about. You have to know what questions to ask. You also need to know when to back off. Because if your folks have not done the work, then I can just about guarantee you that they're going to give you pushback. And so you want to be, and they will get angry and they will push back when you start asking them uncomfortable questions. What do you mean? You're trying to take my stuff. You want to put me in a home. Those kinds of things come bubbling to the surface, and a talk that you arranged for all the best reasons turns into something ugly. It doesn't have to be ugly, though, and it doesn't have to stay ugly. And I have a lot of great ideas and resources for you to take this to the next step and to the next level if you want it. So for those of you who are just getting situated in this realm, I welcome you to investigate my book, Dementia Sucks. Looks like this. You can get it at all major booksellers. It's available from Barnes & Noble. It's available from Amazon as a paperback and as a Kindle edition. It's also on Leadership Books. There are lots of ways to get it. So by all means, take a look at that. You can also ask me for the 8 topics you must discuss. That's actually a chapter in the book, and it talks about what things you need to know, what questions you need to ask your parents, how to have a productive conversation with them, and give you an idea of what to do with that information once you've received it. Another step you might want to take is the Family Care Survival course. This is a course that is available on the Udemy platform, and I will put links for all these resources in the comments section in YouTube and in the podcast, so you don't have to go hunting or writing this stuff down. But on the Udemy platform is the Family Care Survival course. It's great for people who are just getting started on their family care journey because it explains what caregiving is, what kind of meetings you need to have, the questions, how to have a productive meeting, how to turn a vitriolic meeting into a productive meeting, how to actually have the conversation and get where you need to go with it, and then what to do with that information once you get it to turn it into an actual plan of action for your family so that everyone can be cared for and everyone knows what their roles are and where to go from just getting started. So there's that. And the next step is going to be something that I'm very excited about. I'm working with some colleagues creating a platform for family caregivers and for care workers called Care Team Partner. And the idea behind Care Team Partner is that every caregiver, whether they're a family caregiver or a paid caregiver, needs a team behind them. And we are that team. So my colleagues and I have created this platform, and it's a work in progress. We're just getting started with it. But I would be happy to send you an invitation to this free platform that we are creating. And what's coming very shortly in the month of December, we're actually going to launch a petition where we're hoping to gather at least 100,000 signatures and deliver it to our legislators in Washington, D.C. to raise their awareness and get them moving on recognizing and supporting caregiving. It's an extremely important facility that is unfortunately very badly unrecognized in our country. Family caregivers who work are a 53 million person block. And we want to support those people. We want to provide resources and training and a number of tools that you can utilize in order to care for your loved ones and take better care of yourself. We're also devoting our resources to raising awareness among employers that their employees are very well represented in this population. So we want to make employers aware and become more active in supporting the working caregivers that they are employing so that they will be able to attract and retain some of the best people. And we all know that the best employees tend to be caregivers because We're tenacious, we're problem solvers, and we apply ourselves to situations in ways that few other people will. So we know that we are great employees, and that by supporting family caregivers, that we can create a sea change in our society that brings caregivers greater rewards, greater recognition, and puts them in a position where they are receiving what they need and feel freer to ask for what they need and to help them understand what they actually need. Because in a lot of cases, caregivers just feel overwhelmed and they don't even know where to turn or what to ask for. So Care Team Partner is going to be that place to go, that community where people can go and get the answers that they're looking for. So I welcome you to visit Care Team Partner. We do not have a website yet, but we do have our platform, which is built on Mighty Networks. And if you request a link, I can send it to you, and I will actually put the link in the chat, in the post for the Good Kids Club. And as time goes on, we will be more aggressively inviting people to come join us, because right now you can think of the platform as kind of in beta. We're testing it out. We're creating these different groups and resources and spaces, but shortly in the new year we will be creating this membership paradigm where people will be able to sign up, become part of Care Team Partner, and derive all kinds of support and tools and groups to support them that they will find, we know they will find, extremely useful, and a place to express themselves and have voice and be heard, because that's what caregivers really need, right? Well, a lot of times we bitch and we gripe and we wish there were things that could help us, but this is going to be the place to go where we're actually going to be able to get action. So with all that being said, I want to thank you so very much for listening and for being a part of the Good Kids community. I'm taking Thanksgiving off, but I plan to be back the week after, and I would love to hear from you guys about the kinds of things that you experienced during the holidays with your loved ones, and see if there's any way that I can be of help, or that Care Team Partner can be of help to you and your family members. So thanks so much. Have a happy and healthy and enjoyable Thanksgiving with your family. I hope it's peaceful and productive, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.